Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland. So this is a Parsee cemetery, something which ought to be a contradiction in terms, as I shall explain. So I'm in Brookwood Cemetery in the United Kingdom. Brookwood was at one point the largest graveyard in the world. It was opened in 1852, but the first deposit was in 1854. Not a bank deposit. Anyway, it's something, if it was a deposit, you can deposit, but you can never withdraw, if you will. Although actually there have been some reinterments. Anyway, this is somewhere out west of London, and you heard the choo-choo roar by, because there was a special London Necropolis station, beside Waterloo Station. I must find the remnants of it, and a line coming directly here. So the 1850s, the graveyards of London were absolutely full, so I had to go some miles to the west and pick this delightful piece of woods for this cemetery. This is the final resting place of over 250,000 people. But I'm going to concentrate on the Parsees. Now, Parsees, in case you don't know, they originally came from Persia, as in Persia, we now call it Iran. In their language, Parsee would just mean a Persian. So that was the major religion of Persia in ancient times. So worshipping Ahura Mazda, Lord Wisdom, and Zarathustra was their prophet. So we often call their faith Zoroastrianism. And then you see here this sort of stylized, simplified version of their symbol. But we'll see some better versions of it a little bit later. So the Parsees believe in certain sacred elements: the earth, water, fire, and wind. So they wouldn't bury their dead, since that would defile the earth, nor would they cremate their dead, since that would defile fire, nor would they put their dead in the water, since that would defile water. For some reason, well, they would expose them in a tower of silence, which is sort of a vertical graveyard, if you will, for vultures to come and pick clean the bones. But that wouldn't defile the air somehow. I don't follow the logic myself. And so there were towers of silence in Iran. There are very, very few Parsees left in Iran. The Parsees, or the Zoroastrians, they left for India well over a millennium ago, mostly settling in Gujarat. But they're very few in number. And I've heard this from different versions, that in order to be a Parsee, one must be a Parsee of full blood. And they don't accept converts. They're certainly not a proselytizing religion. Others have said, no, you must be Parsee on the father's side. The mother's side is immaterial. But anyway, that they largely appear to be a group that marries within itself. And if you marry out, that's it. So that's why their numbers have diminished and diminished, and they're of the order of 70,000 Parsees in the world left. Now, there must be many people who are a fraction of Parsee ancestry, but somehow don't count. So they're known as Parsees or Zoroastrians, same thing. But from Gujarat, they largely moved to Mumbai, or Bombay as it was then called, in the early 19th century. And at one time, they composed a significant percentage of the population of that city. But Mumbai is a gigantic city now, and this metropolis is the largest conurbation in India. So the Parsees are an absolutely minuscule fraction of the population, and just a microscopically small percentage of the population of India. There's a Parsee population to be found in Karachi. Indeed, I've been in the Parsee colony in Karachi, very close to the mausoleum of the Qaid-e-Azam, that's to say Muhammad Ali Jinnah. There was this misconception that there was a Parsee shrine in Azerbaijan. It's really a Hindu one, that there had been some Parsees there very long ago, because Azerbaijan at times was part of Persia. And then Parsees have gone wherever the Indian diaspora has gone. They, in Parsee terms, they've got significant communities in the United Kingdom, Australia, the United States, and goodness, I can't think where else, Hong Kong, Canada. But I think I'm right in saying the United Kingdom's got the third largest Parsee population in the world, but that's not saying much. So we can have, well, don't want to have to bend down too much, a good look at the Parsee symbol. So they tended to be, there you are, very faithful subjects of the British Raj in the 19th century, to embrace Anglophone education and to rise high in the world. They had long prospered in trade. They're a little bit like the Jewish community, only far less numerous. There is, of course, a Jewish population in India, but most of them have shifted to Israel. Anyhow, there's this tiny community that thrived, known for its mercantile and professional acumen. So rising high in the learned professions. They often append the honorific G to their surnames. Some of them took a name which reflected their profession, such as engineer. So by the early 20th century, most of them appeared to speak fluent English, which was highly unusual in India at the time. I know loads of Indians speak perfect English these days. A lot of Indians speak it reasonably well, a few speak none at all. But, you know, going back to over a century ago, you know, literacy in India was much lower, about 12%. Not many of those were literate in English, but they were perhaps the most urbanized and most Britannicized community of all. So, well, I might tell you more about some individuals if we find the graves of some of the distinguished individuals, Parsee individuals. But anyway, some of them were living here in the United Kingdom from the early 19th century, and sometimes they felt the icy hand of death upon them. And when they were called to their reward, there was no Tower of Silence here. I'm not sure they ever asked the British authorities whether they would be permitted to erect a Tower of Silence. The thing is, not wanting to be too crude, but obviously the bodies are going to putrefy, and the odour would be most disagreeable. And I've walked past the Towers of Silence on Malabar Hill in Mumbai. It's my goodness, over 20 years since I did that. And it's in a park. It's got pride of place in Mumbai. You're kept well back, and I think that must partly be because presumably the stench would just be overpowering of corrupting bodies. There's no pleasant way to say it. And then obviously Mumbai's got a significant problem, is that there are not enough vultures around to devour the cadavers of the dear departed Parsees. And partly because of some chemical that the vultures were eating was killing them off and blah blah blah, and could they import more vultures? So what were they going to do, and get some huge high what's the word, mirrors to reflect the sun, and somehow that would cause the bodies to shrivel up. It's not pleasant. And people from some of the skyscrapers around there, people are taking some ghoulish photos of what these distending, discoloured corpses look like. Anyway, it's rather disagreeable. But anyway, so when they died here, they simply had to be buried. They had to break with their rule. There was no way around it. But you see, like Peshotan Parsee, so they've gone for a British nickname, and the headstones are almost entirely in English. There's some other scripts which I'm trying to figure out. Minu Dinshaw, so Dinshaw, quite a well-known Parsee name. So they've achieved just a most exceptional degree of success in business, in military affairs, in politics, law, medicine, music, sports, numerous other fields. It really is staggering. As Gandhi said, that in population they're beneath contempt, but their contribution to India is just incalculable. But sadly, as I say, there'll be no more Parsees of full blood with us. But is caring about sort of blood purity, is that a laudable thing? I think not. Come on, we're all human. Now, good to keep their identity and culture and so on, but it seems a bit judgmental to say, well, if you marry outside the tribe, you're simply an outcast. So people getting thrown out for marrying for love. Perhaps not all Parsees feel like that. There are Parsees who marry out, of course. They don't feel like that. And I know you'll get that sort of prejudice in any religious or ethnic community. Oh, you can't marry somebody from outside our group. Like Bahadurji, Bahadur meaning brave. Captain, I wonder, captain of what? So calling him a Zoroastrian. So I can't remember who said it. Zoroastrian, thy name is charity. Also noted for their extraordinary philanthropy. So yes, they amassed great fortunes, but they were very open-handed in donating to worthy causes. So they're really praised for their benevolence. Oh, here's a case in point. When I said they sometimes took the name engineer. Dr. Rashan Minu, engineer. Okay. Ooh, and because it's on white, you've got a fairly good idea of what the Parsee symbol is like. That man, I wonder if does he represent Zarathustra? And then the wings, a classic Persian symbol. And he's got the Persian hat or the long beard as they used to have. And they're often wearing their white robes and white hats for their ceremonies, and something over their mouth and nose, a bit like a coronavirus mask. And look at Maria Rustom Cooper. So taking English language names, but Rustam is a rather Persian name. And I even met an Iranian Muslim who'd converted to Zoroastrianism. I don't know if he was accepted, converted in his own mind, but he might have said, well, my ancestors presumably were Zoroastrians until about the 7th century AD. But Cooper, I wonder, did she marry a British guy with the surname Cooper, or did they anglicize the Indian surname Kapoor? So there was, as I say, there was an engineer back there. That was his surname. And look at this chap, Jahangir, a typical Persian name, as in grabber of the world, a world conqueror, and Bapuji, as in respected older man. And look here, they've got it in Persian script on this headstone as well. And I saw one headstone which said the person had been born in Iran, and on and on. Khodad, so a typically Persian name, and on and on. So Persian script as well as in English. So, yeah, there are very few here. Now, Freddie Mercury, famously, Farrokh Bulsara, as he originally was born in the then British colony of Zanzibar, an island off the coast of Tanzania, or Tanganyika as we would have called it back then. But Zanzibar was a separate colony. He was born a British citizen, and so he remained to the day he died. But his surname, Bulsara, came from a village north of Mumbai. But he moved to this country as a teenager, well, and the rest is history. I just thought when Narendra Modi addressed the British Indian community at Wembley Stadium in about 2010, David Cameron, when he was introducing him, ought to say the last Indian to get such a tremendous cheer at Wembley was Freddie Mercury. But the trouble is that might not have gone down so well with Narendra Modi. I'm not sure he's up to speed with pop music, and he might have taken it as a slight. He's a rather touchy chap, so I hear. Anyway, you can see what a wilderness it was beforehand, a heath and not very fertile land, rough and uneven, so not good to put under the plough, so they didn't mind losing it to be the eternal resting place of those. There's a Parsee section, there's a big Muslim section, particularly a Turkish section to Brookwood Cemetery, because the Turkish Air Force was here training in the Second World War. That was a neutral country, but they thought they might be invaded by the Germans, Italians. In fact, that never happened, but inevitably there were air accidents, and about a dozen Turkish pilots have found their eternal rest in this self-same cemetery. So some of these, presumably the older graves, not quite so well kept. So what else can I say about the Zoroastrians? Yeah, so heavily concentrated in Mumbai. You'll find a few in Karachi. I remember in Quetta, Pakistan, 20 years ago, passing a former temple. Now, they've got the flame there as a symbol of the Almighty. They don't worship the flame. They're often known as fire worshippers, which is a misnomer. And the flame is to be protected from the eyes of infidels. So, I mean, Parsees of full blood. I met them in Karachi, and I think that's it. There was a part Parsee I knew at UNIV, at my college, University College, Oxford. Okay, so more examples of their symbols there. And then some of them had the surname Mehta, which is quite a typical surname, I think, in Gujarat. Patel, likewise. And on and on. So I think you get the idea of the symbol of the faith. And then on some tombstones they've got the flame. Oh, and this Firoza. Okay, so a typical Persian name. But you know, in Pakistan or any country in that region, they would have Persian names quite a lot of the time. Firoz or Firoza, Feroz Shah, things like that. I don't know what it actually means, Azerbaijan. So Persian-speaking countries, or at least partly Persian-speaking countries. Iran, obviously. Azerbaijan, slightly. Mainly it's Turkish, their Azerbaijani language, with a few Persian accretions. Obviously, Afghanistan, half of them speaking Dari, which is really Persian, and then a few of them in Pakistan. But languages like Pashto and Urdu have a bit of Persian in them. And so, therefore, in India, well, the few Urdu speakers, Persian is a major language of North India, and on and on. Tajikistan, their language is largely the same as Persian. Okay, so look at this lady here. Now, I don't know which script this is. Khawasji, a well-known Parsee surname, and a very prominent family in Pakistan, the Khawasjis. They've been judges of the Supreme Court. Look at the flame there, because that's a symbol of their faith. Okay, and the symbols here. So I think it's wonderful if you have a photo of yourself, and then, but obviously you want to be youthful and beautiful in that photo, and not decrepit and moribund. And on one of the graves over there, likewise a flame-like symbol lying down, and mentions of people being born in Bombay, or Mumbai as it is now. 1998, it changed its name to Mumbai because supposedly there was some temple for the votaries of Mumba, a local deity, whereas when the Portuguese had it, they called it Bombaia, meaning good bay in the Portuguese tongue. And when Charles II married Catherine of Braganza, the Portuguese gave him a wedding present, namely Bombay, or Mumbai as it is to us now, and precious few people live there. So anyway, so look at these flames here, and then the symbol of the Freemasons. So quite a few of them were Freemasons. I've still talked about the Freemasons in other videos, so I don't propose to talk about them now, but anyone can join the Freemasons, so long as they say that they believe in the Supreme Being. Who the Supreme Being is entirely up to you. It could be Jesus Christ, it could be Allah, it could be Ahura Mazda, it could be the Hindu pantheon, but you must simply say you believe in the Supreme Being, whoever that may be. Oh, Fakirji Kawasaji, okay, another one of those, and on and on. So more flame symbols. Now this script I don't recognize. I'm thinking, what is that? Excuse my ignorance, because they said quite a few of them speak Gujarati. Is that Gujarati? Because it's not Hindi, I don't think. Because, you know, quite a few of these North Indian languages share that same Devanagari script. I mean, Gujarati might use it, I wouldn't know. I've been to Gujarat precisely once. I spent 2 days there. That was in 1999. So do absolve me if I ought to know, only it slipped my mind. So yeah, it's absolutely scintillating. I hope I don't seem too macabre prowling around these a century and a half old tombstones in some cases. But it's somehow life-affirming, memento mori, so make the most of things and, you know, don't worry about money too much. Now, this is a splendid mausoleum, okay? So this deserves some attention. Better read it out loud, okay? There's the inscription above. The legend says, I am Naurosji Nashirwanji Wadia, of the ancient Aryan race of Persia, a citizen of the loyal town of Bombay, who lie here peacefully under the far-off sky of wide-famed Britain. Which is the kind of thing written at the zenith of British power, and they bore true allegiance to the Emperor of India, it seems to me, as in the King of the United Kingdom. Thou who openest the gate of morning to the ascending sun, O thou Son of Righteousness, arise, with healing in thy wings, and lift up the light of thy countenance on us, that in thy light we may see the light of life everlasting. You see the rather dusty door there? Strikes me he's not come out for an exceedingly long time. So he has found eternal repose within those silent walls. And what does it say here? Well, goodness gracious me, I shall read it off. O thou who of thy own power and majesty fillest infinity high enthroned above all height, from the heaven of heavens of thy splendour and praise, look down on us, bound in the bonds of this horror of darkness, and of thy most pitiful grace sustain and uphold us. In the multitude of thy mercy at the last, when purged from the impurities of this mortal body, deliver us thou, whose most holy name is the Father, the Comforter, the Redeemer, the Saviour of all thy children, and who from everlasting to everlasting art the Lord God omnipotent. They were monotheists, incidentally. I wonder if they even invented monotheism, because Persia's got some of the oldest writing in the world. Okay, and it goes on. Okay, we're still not finished. Okay, thou who closest the gate of evening on the descending sun, O thou who in the ineffable brightness of whose coming, the darkness and the light are both alike, descend into this prison house, and be with us through all the night of death until the day that thou receive us into thy everlasting blessedness of thy heavenly habitation, the gates of which are never closed, for it is infinite day there, and there is no night there. So, a really rousing and uplifting hope of a rebirth to eternal sunshine. And it says so again, oh, those of our posterity who lovingly recall our name, who in the dark cold months of the sunken sun of winter, sitting beside their household fires, reverently meditate on our name, and when the sun of summer warms the earth, to offer our disembodied spirit the fragrance of flowers and the fruit, and ever name us with a blessing, them shall the Lord of all grace and glory, the Lord Ahura Mazda, bless everlastingly. Worthy sentiments indeed. Okay, so I think that's enough for a whistle-stop tour of Zoroastrianism, especially the tiny Zoroastrian community in the United Kingdom. So Wadia, quite a lot of them have that typical name. However, plenty of Wadias are not Zoroastrians, and on and on. Notably, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan, he married Ruti Petit, the daughter of a Parsee friend, and her father actually threw a wobbly when she married him, so he cut her off without a penny, never spoke to her again. And then the same thing happened to Jinnah's daughter Dina, married outside the faith, I think married a Parsee again, which didn't go down too well, so he never spoke to her again. Rather hypocritical, since she had done exactly what he had done. I know it's slightly different because in Islam, a Muslim can marry a Christian, a Muslim man can marry a Christian or a Jewish woman, but a Muslim woman is not permitted to marry outside the faith, so that's fair. Okay, right, toodaloo everyone, that's all for the moment. So please subscribe, well, follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. Thank you so for the donations to me on PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Callahan is spelled C-A-L-L-A-G-H-A-N. So it's all small letters in georgecallahan79@gmail.com. and book online lessons will be in history and politics and religious studies, French, law, geography, and choose me to help you with your dissertations, essays and theses, and I'm your tour guide in Londinium. And also check out my British Poesy channel on YouTube. Toodaloo.